and say
Absolutely.
that,
Okay.
yes, I'm doing that. Okay. Good morning, everyone. As Eileen said, a lovely day in Ann Arbor. I'm Susan Fisher, and I'm the chairperson of the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater Ann Arbor. The Foundation Committee is representative of our Jewish community and is a planned giving arm of the Jewish Federation and the repository for the endowment funds of most of the Jewish organizations in Ann Arbor. The foundation is sponsoring this program as part of its ongoing education component. In addition, it dovetails nicely with the Life and Legacy program in Ann Arbor, which the foundation is overseeing. As you probably already know by now, our hope is that through Life and Legacy, legacy giving will become part of the fabric of our thriving Ann Arbor Jewish community. The purpose of our program today is to help you answer the question, what information do I alone or with my spouse or partner need to consider and discuss before meeting with an estate professional? We are indeed fortunate to have Alan Cotzin provide guidance in answering this question. He will break down the essentials of what you need to know and consider in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. Please hold your questions or put them into the chat function, and we will handle those at the end of Alan's presentation. Alan probably does not need an introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway. He has been an active member of the Ann Arbor Jewish community for over 40 years. He has served as a development professional for 30 years at the University of Michigan and was the major and planned giving director for the Department of Surgery and the director for the regional director for the southern states. He has also served as the president of Temple Beth Emeth and for the formation of the Amster Center, which is a part of JFS. He served as a consultant in setting up what has been a very, very successful effort. He's been on the board of directors of the Ann Arbor Summer Festival, and we're lucky to have him as a member of our Ann Arbor Jewish Community Foundation. I'm going to go on. I could go on for a while longer, but I'm not going to. And it's now my pleasure to turn the program over to an individual who has done a lot for our community, who I'm also very lucky to consider a very good friend, Alan Cotzin.
Thank you, Susan. So we're talking today about assuring a Jewish Ann Arbor. As Susan said, this information is divided into a number of parts. Number one is, what do you and or your spouse need to talk about before you go meet with your financial professionals? So you go in with a game plan of what you'd like to accomplish through your estate. Then we talk about different ways of giving and also some legal paperwork you need to make sure you have, and then we'll get into the 20s and 30s. So there's a number of different sections, but they all go together. So let's get started. Okay. Holy, come on. Okay. Okay. We are worth sharing what we are willing to share with others. Just something to give us a foundation for the overall program. Now, in this program, we're going to encourage you to have a discussion between you and or your partner on the priorities and outcome of what you'd like your legacy to be. We'll prepare you to meet with your advisors to formalize your estate plan. I'm sure if you go in without this type of work done before, the first hour or two you spend with your estate professional, these type of questions will be asked so you can be prepared. And we'll suggest ways of enhancing your estate planning process. Remember that if you don't have a plan, the government takes over and directs the outcome. And this has been true for many, many years. Over 50% of people have no plan, and the state is controlling their final wishes. We're also going to cover some helpful topics such as required minimum distribution, donor advised funds, family communications, and if you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. So let's get started here. Your plan should reflect your values, your goals, and then what is your responsibility as you develop the plan. Your values include your life journeys and family values, important influences or events in your life, and how have Jewish values and our great Jewish community enriched your life? How do you want to perpetuate your values to your family and community? You need this base foundation for making decisions on what you wish to do with your estate. So your goals are to maintain and build financial independence, provide for your family members or others, maximize the distribution of your assets to either your family, the government, and or the charities of your choice, and to ensure our Jewish Ann Arbor is a vibrant community for future generations. So this is what you want the outcomes to be of your estate plan. Your role is you control and own all the assets. You establish the values and goals, as we said in the previous slides. You decide who to support in your family, how and when to give the support. You direct what philanthropic organizations you wish to support. And you can change most parts of the plan. There are some laws you can't make, you can't change parts of it, but that's always in flux. So in taking care of you, you have to make decisions about what do you require to maintain the lifestyle you choose? How do you wish to enhance your lifestyle? Do you want an additional home? Do you want to travel a lot more? Other recreation? Have you taken care of your healthcare needs? And have you provided for inflation or unexpected needs? I really don't see inflation as a major factor. You know, the price of gasoline goes up a quarter. It's not going to make a major difference in most of our lives. In providing for your family, you have to make decisions about how much do you want to provide? Do you want to provide these resources now in your estate or in both? Who needs your financial support? And that may vary within your family. Is there an amount you don't want to exceed? How responsible are they with the resources you might provide? And is there a reason for the gift? Do you want to help them educate their children, buy a home, start a business? You have to think about all these in the context of your family. There are many situations where donors I worked with in the past said, I'm going to pay for my private high school education for my grandkids, but not for their college education. I think that the parents have a responsibility to do that. I know I feel very good that we put our two girls through college and they came out loan free, and I feel very proud that we're able to do that. So the parents also need some place to have satisfaction and feel good about what they've done. Now, the resources you're working with are your retirement assets, real estate, primary and secondary, investments in businesses, if you have insurance, art, jewelry, other appreciated assets. We're going to provide you in a couple of weeks on the foundation website with a workbook that's computer friendly, that you can put all this information down and you can update it on your computer. But this will be an important piece of paper to bring, or a computer program to bring to your estate planners so they can get the whole picture of your financial situation so they can structure the best way for you to structure your estate. Now, we've been talking about advisors. Everybody needs an estate planning attorney or financial planning. And they have to be specialists in their field. Just as you wouldn't use an orthopedic surgeon to deliver a baby, you wouldn't use somebody who did construction law to plan your estate. This is a very specialized field, and it's constantly changing. Depending upon the scope of your estate, you may need tax planning, trust and investment insurance, and somebody from philanthropy to make sure that what your wishes are carried out. Again, each must be a specialist in their field. So a great plan will allow you to control the distribution of your assets, will allow you to be tax efficient, and will let you decide who benefits from your philanthropy. So that's what we're trying to get to make sure that your wishes are carried out, again, in the most tax efficient manner. Documentation. Now, you need to seek legal advice, and the advice of my friendly attorney, Ed Goldman, he told me to put in, I am not an attorney. Nothing I give you should be considered legal advice. But everyone should have these documents now. The power of attorney for finance, and we'll talk a little bit more about electronic footprint. You need powers of attorney for medical care, your advance directives, HIPAA, medical information. And a couple of years ago, the state of Michigan passed a law, which is happening in many states, that when a child turns 18, they need the power of attorney. They need somebody to have the power of attorney, the healthcare proxy. For example, if you're paying for your child's college education and you want to find out their grades, if you don't have a power of attorney, you can't find out their grades. And God forbid they had a medical situation where decisions needed to be made. Again, you need to have a healthcare proxy because they're over 18. So that's something that a lot of people were not aware of, but something you should look into. And at passing, you need a will that appoints your personal representative, a trust with a successor trustees who will follow your wishes, and your beneficiary designations. These are very important things to deal with. Now we have a few problems here and there. The old documents are not signed or properly witnessed. The old or out-of-date documents control the plan. We all have heard the story that this couple got divorced, one of them remarried, but they never changed the life insurance. So the first husband or wife gets all the money and the new one does not. So you need to make sure your documents are kept up to date. The family is not told of your plan and what's the philosophy behind it, what you're trying to accomplish. I'll talk about this a little later in a section on family meetings. Who receives the family heirlooms, art, jewelry, and keepsakes, and other special items? You don't want to have family problems about who got, Aunt Bessie's brooch. You need to deal with this ahead of time. And charities need full information about what your intent is. That's just very, very helpful. Common mistakes people make. Most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do in planning your estate. I think all of you, if you think back how much time you're planning on your future vacation, you haven't spent that much time planning your estate or reviewing it. And then when I was in Florida, working in Florida for the university, many people got stuck in the information gathering stage. In Florida, you could go 7 days a week, 3 meals a day, sponsored by Merrill Lynch or Fidelity, trying to get you to use their services. It's not so bad in Ann Arbor, but I think you could go once a week and get a very nice meal. But people always go to these sessions, but they never take action. They're just gathering information. So to have a great plan, you need to have thoughtful reflection and discussion, time and effort, qualified advisors, and it's not a one-time endeavor. It takes ongoing attention, especially now with change in administration. There's going to be a number of changes in tax laws, I would suspect. Andrew Carnegie once said, it's more difficult to give away money intelligently than to earn it in the first place. From my work at the university, this is absolutely true. What's the most efficient way that's going to accomplish what you'd like to within your estate or your current giving as well? You need to reassess the plan on a regular basis. By our retirement, most of us have already educated our children. We own our own home, maybe a second. We travel extensively, not last year, but this might increase between 65 and 75. And most of us acquire all the possessions that we want. And our lifestyle does not drastically change. And later in retirement, we're finding that our spending habits usually decrease and we might move closer to family. So as you age, you need to think about these items. So the questions you should be looking at as you complete the process: how does the estate plan reflect your values and goals? How do you want to be remembered in future generations? Do you now receive annually more than you need to maintain your standard of living? How much is enough for your family members? And how much do you want to leave to the government? I assume that's the smallest amount of your estate. In reviewing your plan, you need to regularly assess each asset and its contribution to the plan. I've had this stock for 50 years and it only pays 2%. Should I do something else with it? And as you review your plan, if you move to a different state, when laws change, if you have significant changes in your family, your goals or priorities change, or at least every 3 years, you should be reviewing your plan. Sometimes we say peek at it every year, but do a real thorough review. Doesn't have to be with a lawyer. You might want to check with them if there have been any changes in tax laws, but regularly you should review it. Now I want to switch to the next part of the program, talking about ways of being philanthropic. This applies not only to your current giving, but also to your estate giving. So we can always give outright gifts of cash, appreciated stocks, and real property. There are a number of different charitable trusts, and since I'm not an attorney, I'm not getting into this. The final allocation of your retirement assets, and I'll talk about this a little later, use of your required minimum distribution. You could establish or donate through a donor-advised funds, charitable bequests, or endowments. And another thing we've done in a number of situations in our community is you could endow your annual dues or your pledge to Federation, to your synagogue, as a way of constantly maintaining your support of organizations that have been important in your life. Donor advised funds. This acts as what we call a philanthropic checkbook. You get a deduction when you place the money in the fund if you itemize over $24,800. This was a recent change a number of years ago with a much higher standard deduction. Some people alternate years and give a large amount to charity in 1 year, so they get the tax deduction, and nothing or very little in the following year. It's a balancing act. You need to talk with your financial people. And lots of organizations have donor advised funds. The Federation has done a great job with their donor advised funds, but also Schwab and Fidelity and other community foundations have it. And you can direct any of the funds from this philanthropic checkbook to any 5013C. Now, required minimum distribution. You need to have a qualified retirement plan. For those of you who work for the university, those are usually 403Bs, which you cannot use where you don't have a required minimum distribution. All you have to do there is roll it over into a rollover IRA, and you can then use your required minimum distribution. So you have to be over 72 and not working. Again, it has to come from an IRA or a qualified plan. The limit of $100,000 per year you can donate to charities. Again, this can serve as a philanthropic checkbook. I do a lot of my stuff through Fidelity, and they sent me a regular checkbook, but the money is drawn out of my RMD, and I just write checks to the charities I wish to support. The advantage of doing this directly from your IRA to a charity is you don't pay federal income tax when the money comes out, but you also don't get a charitable deduction. But that's very important because as you take money out of your RMD, you pay income tax at the beneficiary's rate when it's received. This should be one of the first assets you give to charity except for Roth, because you've already paid tax on that money going in. So if you leave your total RMD to your children, they have to pay tax at their rate. And there was a recent change that they have to take out that money within 10 years. So if you can give your children items other than out of your retirement plan assets, then they won't pay charities. They won't pay the tax on that. The example is if you give your kids stocks, those are revalued at time of death for the beneficiary. So if you have a stock you bought at $10, it's now worth $100. You pass that on to your children through your estate plan, their basis is $100, and they won't have to pay capital gains on that appreciation. So this is stuff that your financial planners and your attorneys need to help you with. So again, you're as tax efficient as possible. Another concept we've used throughout the years I was doing plan giving is testing the water. It's an opportunity to test portions of your plan or your ideas and modify if necessary. You see the plan in action without full commitment, and you get satisfaction of seeing your philanthropy in action. The example I normally use, if you wanted to fund a scholarship, you fund the scholarship out of current funds. You'll get to meet your student, and at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year. And if you like how this is working, then you could endow that in your estate. We have a couple of very good examples in Ann Arbor. Paul and Caroline Lichter established one for trips to Israel. And they meet with the student before and after and get to see their philanthropy in action. Somebody at Beth Israel also endowed a Scholars Weekend. Again, that person is participating in that and involved and knows that this will continue on after their passing. These are wonderful ways of making charitable gifts. Okay, next section, family conversations. We started about 10 years ago having family meetings, again, age appropriate, with our adult children. The first time we told them we were going to have a family meeting, and we brought them in our living room, and we said, well, we want to have this family meeting. The next question out of my son-in-law, okay, who's sick? This was not who's sick. This included a discussion of our health status and what our wishes are for advance directives, a general idea of our finances, what charities are important to us and why, and what our wishes are regarding long-term care, nursing home, hospice care, end-of-life desires. So they're not burdened with that in a later stage of life. The finance one is a very interesting one. I had a colleague who brought her kids in, told them what the financial situation was. She asked them, well, what would you do if you received this money? One of them said, well, I'd quit work immediately. The next morning, she changed her plan. So you have to decide at what level is appropriate for you to share information. The next point I want to make is family memories and shared experiences. Enjoy the time with your loved ones, no matter what your financial situation is. You want to create or enhance family traditions, travel with your family, holiday celebrations. There are a number of companies who have done grandparent experience. One couple in Ann Arbor took their grandkids on a trip to Alaska, something they'll never forget. We took our whole family to Alaska on our 50th anniversary, and it brought the whole family much closer together. So time and shared experiences are very important. And it's using what success you've had to build family relationships and experiences and family memories. I think this is one of the most important slides in the overall program today. Okay, electronic footprint. There was this digital asset law passed a number of years ago in the state of Michigan. We were one of the first states to do it. that you need to update your will, trust, or power of attorney to include these items. These need to also be in the records of the hospital you most likely go to. Because if you get sick, your kids may not be able to get the information about your condition unless you've identified that and identified them. You need to know, family members need to know where your passwords are, where they're stored, who has access to them. We use LastPass, and for our password manager, and there's a part in there that you can give your kids an emergency way of getting into it if something happens to you. You need a list. It needs to be kept up to date. You need to have backup storage of all this data. So much of our life is in our computer programs today. Your kids want to have access to the photos you have. So this electronic footprint is just very important. So in your 20s, you need to start retirement savings. The earlier you do it, the better off you're going to be, because it has an opportunity to increase over 30, 40 years, and you'll be in much better shape at retirement. You need to inform someone close to you of in the event that you're unable to make decisions in the future. Again, that 19-year-old goes off to college and something happens to them, they need to have the power of attorney, their advanced directives, financial, HIPAA, and their electronic footprint. These are things that are very important, even at that early age. In your 30s, you may have started a family, you may own your home, you have improving financial assets. You need to begin to investigate trust, wills, or what your insurance needs are. Have you identified the guardianship? Who will be responsible for your children? And update documents as needed. In your 40s and 50s, you're updating your estate plan, look at long-term care insurance, and have a discussion with your parents of their wishes and plans. So when they pass, you know what they want to have happen to them. You will begin to develop your goals and priorities, what charities are important to you, how do you want to be remembered? And again, that communicate with family in those family meetings is just very helpful. And in your 60s and beyond, it's regular review and update on an ongoing basis. And you'll have to decide those intervals. Final points on the program. The program is designed to start the development of your plan or review your current one. Always consult with your professional advisors before you sign any documents. Don't make any handwritten changes to any signed documents, because if it's not properly notarized, if it needs that, it won't work. And communicate with your family and charities about your plans and wishes. Oh, wrong one, okay. And the last gift you can leave your family is that all your affairs in order. These are very complicated things for most of us. And if you have them in order, it'll be just so much better for your kids and everybody else. So if you have questions or helpful suggestions, you can contact me, or of course, Eileen Freed, the Executive Director of the Federation. There are two websites that will be helpful to you. One is the foundation website, and the link is here. And we're just in the final stages of developing a number of items. One is that computer-friendly estate planning book where you can record everything, keep it on your computer, and it's easily updatable. We're going to mail out to you as soon as it's done what I call getting started, the high questions, the 18 questions you need to begin to deal with. It's a workshop that you and or your spouse need to complete separately and then share your responses to see if you're on the same page. We're going to make this slide deck and the recording of this program available. And we are currently, through the foundation, working on future items to be put on the website, including a more professional discussion of wills, trusts, ethical wills, which are very important to for people. And we'll have information on that. more on the required minimum distribution, donor advised funds, and others. And of course, what the great work that's being done in the community about the Life and Legacy program. All of that information is on the Life and Legacy website. Again, that's available. And talking about Life and Legacy, just a small pitch. The following 11 organizations are part of Life and Legacy, and you can give to one, a number of them, all of them, whatever you'd like to do. And if you go to the website, you can get more information on that. And remember that you sign a letter of intent. We'd like you to legally provide. Hello. Okay. So if you need more information on that, that is on the website. So I hope you found this helpful. There's items that many of us don't think about on a regular basis, but I think will make a real difference as you review or plan your estate. So now I will be open for questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. So we will be sharing this slide deck, just so everybody knows. It came up in the chat, and we will be sending out all the information that Alan has put together to everybody who's registered for this program. And we'll also make it available on the foundation website as well.
Thanks so much, Alan. Really appreciate excellent presentation. I learned something new every time I have an opportunity to go through it. So thank you so much. So we'd like to open it for questions. I didn't see any in the chat, so I'm going to personally go on gallery view so I can. The best ways to ask questions are to either wave your hands in front of your video so I can see that you're trying to ask. If your video is not on, there's a little reaction button at the bottom of your screen, and you can click on raise hand. Or if you just want to unmute and start asking a question, unless it becomes too unruly, that should also work. So does anybody have any questions for Alan or anybody on the call?
I have a question. Ed, anything I need to correct?
Ed did share a couple of very helpful comments here. So one is he suggested that we keep, another problem is that people keep all their documents in a safe deposit box where no one can get to them unless it's in a joint names, or if there is a joint name and only one person can get to them, that can also be a problem. So just something else to think about, your safety deposit boxes. The other was just a clarification of 501c3 is a tax exempt charitable organization. But Ed, do you have anything to add? Or
one little thing, Ellen, when you're talking about durable powers of attorney for kids over the age of 18, parents have to be aware that there's a federal law called FERPA, which says you have to the kid has to specifically say, not only can you take care of my health care, but you can have access to my educational records.
Okay.
So there's two separate laws you have to worry about.
Okay, thanks.
Nice work.
other questions? You're so thorough. Appears I don't have any hands waving or, oh wait, I see an applause. That's not a raised hand, it's an applause.
There's a question in the chat asking if
you.
Alan could talk about the issue of life insurance policies.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Who have you designated as the beneficiary in your life insurance, making sure that's accurate. And life insurance is another gift you can give to charities as well. And that you need there. I'm not a life insurance expert, but we have a number of folks in the community who are. And there are different types, as you know, there are different types. There's term, there's whole life. There's some new things going on, as I understand it, between long-term care and life insurance, sort of a combination policy. But that you really need to talk to to your insurance advisors. I know we have long-term care insurance, and it was very reasonable 15 years ago. It's now become less reasonable in cost and greatly reduced benefits. So it's something that you need to think through. The one advantage of some of the life insurance policy, it can protect your assets, especially from the taxes that'll be taken out. So having a life insurance policy to cover what may be your taxes on your RMD, I mean on your retirement plan. Some people take out a life insurance to cover that so their kids get the full value of their retirement assets. But that's again something for you to deal with insurance professionals.
I see that Robin Little has her hand up. Ruth, are you also have your hand up? No, okay, that's okay. So Robin.
So I wanted to just add something about the RMDs, and because Alan and I have talked about this in qualified charitable distributions. So the way that we have done it, Rod and I, is that you can really just have some assets sold in your IRA. So for example, we have an account at Merrill Lynch, and they can sell assets, and then it's just a wire transfer that goes directly either to the University of Michigan, which we've done, or to other nonprofits. So it's actually quite easy to do. And once you do it once, you'll see, how easy it is to use those RMDs for qualified charitable distributions. It's all a mouthful.
But remember, the most important part of what Robin said is you don't take the money out of your retirement assets first and then send that money to the charity, because then you'll pay tax on it. You have to make sure that retirement funds goes directly to the charity. Your hands never touch it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yes, I see Sue. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, whoever was.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment.
Mhm.
First of all, I want to thank Alan for doing this. I want to thank everybody who was part of the foundation for working hard to get this kind of thing together. And I'd like to, I put it in the chat, but if there are topics that you would like to see covered, please let us know. We happen to be very lucky that Alan is a member of the foundation committee, and we didn't have to go out searching for somebody who could do this kind of program, but we are very willing to do that should it be a topic that people are interested in. Earlier, we did a program on the CARES Act when it first came out, and we had some people from different parts of the country talking who were very knowledgeable about various aspects. So if there are topics, you could let Eileen or Margaret or myself know. We feel this is one of the important aspects that the foundation can provide for the community.
I see that Marjorie asked a question. Thank you, Susan. Definitely, please let us know. I see that Marjorie has a question. What is your take on leaving a specified amount of money to grandchildren, or aside from college funds? So perhaps you've opened a special college fund account or something like that. But in addition to that, or aside from that, do you have any opinions or thoughts on leaving a specified amount of money to grandchildren?
I don't. Usually what we've thought of is we're leaving money to our children, and then they can pass the money on to the grandchildren. This is also very dependent on the maturity and age and the situation of your grandchildren. You could have a grandchild who now wants to buy their first house, and you may want to give them some assets, to help pay the down payment. So it depends on the age of the grandchildren, how mature they are and how responsible they are with money. And again, this is part of reviewing your estate plan. You may need to do something when they're first born. Now they're 18, and you may want to change what you're doing. So it's really individual dependent. And again, that's why you review your estate plan on a regular basis.
I was going to say, that's exactly what Alan is saying. Review regularly. That makes a lot of sense. I see that Cantor Regina Hayut has her hand raised.
Hi, thank you so much. And thank you also, Alan, for this great program. Avishai and I are kind of at the beginning phases of thinking down this line. We are mystified by the whole process. So this was helpful to hear about, but I was wondering if you could share maybe a few tips or pointers on how one goes about finding the right fit for financial advisor and lawyers to advise us as we begin the process towards preparing our plan. We aren't even really sure from all of the amazing names we were given how to interview someone and find the right person for us.
Huh, okay. I had a
That's
number
a
of
great
attorneys
question.
review this before I gave the program to make sure it was on target. Everybody knows somebody. And I think that's how we found our attorneys. You know, we asked somebody, were you happy with them, this, that. And then I'm sure all of these attorneys will have initial meetings with you and not charge you. You need to find somebody you're comfortable with and you can share your materials with. And by going through the process of filling out this record book and the questionnaire that's going to be out in a week or two, you'll have thought through what your initial thinking is. And then you'll be able to have a more meaningful meeting with the advisors as you share and see where they're coming from. Different people have different approaches, and you've got to find somebody who you're comfortable with. And there are also a range of prices of what their hourly rates are. And so those are all decision points that you have to make. And you know, the foundation is looking at some efforts to inform lawyers in estate planning attorneys in town, you know, of what life and legacy is and what we're trying to do, so they're knowledgeable about that. You know, we have to be very careful of not recommending anybody, but here's a list of people who have learned about life and legacy or this and would be able to meet with you. There are a number of wonderful ones in town.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I appreciate it.
And I'll just add to that. I see Steve Gerber. I see your question in the chat as well. I mean, I'll be honest, like for us, we just asked somebody we knew who was an attorney and they, you know, referred us to someone, but I was on a national call. And one thing that I learned is that not every attorney or financial planner really thinks about the philanthropic side of it, right? They're working very hard to help you make sure, you know, you're getting what you need for your kids, or, you know, or if it's a financial planner that you're set up, you know, moving forward till you retire or post-retirement. But not everybody does think about philanthropy. And so that might actually be a question that you want to ask is, you know, do you speak with your clients about philanthropy? Are you proactive about it? If not, if you know it's something you're important and the attorney is comfortable with it, that's also great. But apparently there's some large percentage who don't even ask their clients about their philanthropic interests. So just something to consider. So Steve asks, how can current RMDs be used to make a life and legacy bequest? I'm not sure if that's one. I can't answer that.
Well, you can just give it, if you want to use your life and legacy, you just move that money into the endowment in whatever organizations you are wanting to support. And you'll still be recognized in life and legacy immediately. You know, everybody who makes a letter of intent and follows through the paperwork is will be recognized by the Federation and will be probably recognized by the individual organization. I know Beth Emmett has started a Lador Vador Society. We've done some stewardship activities with the folks, and other organizations are beginning to do it. So to be part of life and legacy is one, it's in your estate. And if you want to start to give it now, go ahead. We'd love to see it. Because the other issue in the questionnaire I ask, what's your current income? And do you need all of your income to maintain the lifestyle? And many of us, you know, we're very fortunate and they had great retirement plans. And sometimes we're taking in more than you need to spend. And do you want to put that into another account that'll give to the grandkids? Or do you want to start to give that to charity? You know, that's where I talk about that testing the water. Get some pleasure out of your philanthropy now, not just when you're, on the other side of the daisies. Susan?
I think where some of the problems or the issues come up is that life and legacy is looking at bequests, money that you leave when you no longer need it. That does not mean that you can't give money for future use for an organization when you're still above the daisies, as Alan just said. And that's different than annual giving. So you can give annually, but you can also put current funds like an RMD into an endowment. And that endowment will generate money for your organization, usually 5% a year, and it will pay out and the organization can use that money then. I think where we get confused is that life and legacy is really looking at people who don't have, a lot of people who might not want to give current income or, that amount of money, but upon their passing want to substantially endow something. So I think you just have to have in your mind that if you're giving current dollars, you're either giving them as an annual gift to an organization, or you're putting them into an endowment, which builds and gives off a proportion of that, essentially the interest every year, to the general operating or specified funding requirement that you want for the organization. So I hope that clears it up a little, because I think that's why we
Yeah.
get confused
Susan,
with
very nice.
bequest.
I just want to add that you can do both too. I mean, you can start leaving money now while you're still around to see what's going on, but you also can decide that you'd like to leave it as a legacy for when you're gone. So you can actually do both things. But that was, I think you did a nice job, Susan, explaining that.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
One example of that is you can endow your pledge to Federation or your commitment to your synagogue, and just do it out of your RMD and you're covered forever.
Do I see?
Steve Stancroft.
Yeah,
has
I
a
thought I
question.
saw Steve had a question. Yes. Steve, I think you're muted.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Alan, you've advised people for decades on, estate planning, financial planning, this kind of the gift aspect. And I was wondering, with all the changes to estate taxes and gift taxes limits, and the ones that we're potentially going to be dealing with over the upcoming decades as well, how do you advise people in terms of planning for that?
You can't, because you don't know what the government's going to do. Last year, you didn't have to take any money out of your RMD. You're now back to, you have to meet your RMD. You just have to keep knowledgeable. I think what the foundation will start to do is maybe we'll put out on an annual basis, here are some things you need to think about of the current changes in tax law. So if you need to go to see somebody or not. So we'll, all charities are going to give you a heads up about changes in tax law. And it's something you just have to keep aware of, and that's where the review regularly of your documents is just so important. And as your kids and people grow and mature, there are changes you wish to make. There may be an organization that isn't providing you good stewardship or not doing what you want, and you want to change from one organization to the other. Those are things, I've done it in my plan. I've taken some out and put some others in if they don't keep up with me and provide me good stewardship about what they're doing. So you just have to keep on top of it. There's no easy way of doing it, but I expect that we'll be putting out, from the foundation standpoint, updates with major changes in the law. You may have heard that one thing under discussion in the Biden administration is to eliminate that step up in basis for when you transfer stocks. The problem with that is, I've spoken to a number of people, the problem with that is your father bought you IBM 50 years ago. How can you ever determine the basis of that stock? So that doesn't look like it's probably going to happen, but there'll be other changes that'll come along. They need to raise some more money these days. So that's where I come from on that.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to close with that one comment, and it's that family meeting and communication. It is just so important. I had a family in Florida that had a disabled child, paranoid schizophrenic, and they wanted to leave the estate to take care of him. And when he passed away, then the charity was going to get it. But I made sure that we had a meeting with the parents, the other siblings, so they were well aware of what was happening and there wasn't going to be any dispute or problem after. So that communication within their family is very, very important. The other example I use is who's going to get on Bessie's brooch? You know, the two daughters want it. Well, how are you going to make that decision? Do you want them fighting after you're gone over that? You know, and that may have been important to one daughter, but not to the other. So you've got it's a communications issue that you have to put in legal form. So thank you.
Oh, okay. I don't see many more questions here, and I just want to thank everybody for giving up a portion of their lovely Sunday morning to participate in this. I think we've had some good discussion, some good questions, and I want to thank Alan so very much for doing this. And I want to thank the Foundation Committee. We spent a lot of time trying to think of what would be the best way of presenting these kind of programs, and I think the last two we have really spoken to that component of our charge. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any ideas about a topic that you would like us to consider, please let us know. The Foundation Committee, as I said, is made up of members at large and also representatives of the major organizations within our community, all the endowment funds for almost just about every large Jewish organization and some smaller ones resides with us. All the monies are professionally managed. Your commitment to the foundation is very important. It does a lot for the Jewish community and for the organizations. So thank you again. Please let us know. As you heard Alan say, there is some documentation that would be very helpful for you, and we will make sure that people get that and have it readily available. So thank you again, and sure I'll be seeing many of you around as the weather gets nicer.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Alan.
Mm-hmm.